Is it recording now?
Expecting knowledge and wisdom. Yes.
You're expecting what?
Knowledge and wisdom.
You guys probably should have went to a different in-service. No, my name is Mark McPeak. For those of you who don't know me, I am wrapping up my time at Reno Public Schools. I just actually moved down to Smithville, and for those of you who don't know, it is in the middle of nowhere. If you've never been there, you should take some time and go down there and visit Hochtown, Broken Bow Lake, Beavers Bend area. It's really, really pretty down there. We're going to talk about swine management. I did this last year. Last year I had a few handouts. I still have those. I did not bring them with me. Reason being is because I got to think about it after I handed them out last year. You couldn't have taken them and just edited them. You would have to create your own. All my stuff is saved in Google Docs. If you are interested in any of the stuff that we talk about today or any of those handouts that I had from last year, give me your email address. I will gladly share it with you via Google. Like I said, I've got all that information. Would love for you to have that. But at the same time, if you didn't find them very user-friendly, or you didn't need them or want them or whatever, I didn't want you to just have to throw them away in the trash either. So, and you can kind of create them and make them your own. A couple things, since it's just a small group of us, I'm going to ask you some questions. You can ask me questions. We're going to make this real informational and just helpful, hopefully, for everybody, including myself. So I want to start with, are there any questions that any of you guys have related to anything swine management that you have that you want to ask, know, discuss, cuss, talk about, whatever? Yep.
Things related, but also parents.
Yep.
So like last year, I had two dogs, and her mom did most of the work.
Yep.
How do you, I guess, avoid that, or can you? Because she wants to have 3 dogs this year, and I'm like,
Right.
touch one.
So you're talking about kid wants a show, little bit too much hands-on involvement from mom and dad.
That from mom.
From mom.
But her mom, so like in the morning, she doesn't get up and
Right.
pick up to school, let alone
Right.
eat, so her mom.
Okay.
So her mom has more interaction with those animals than she does.
Right.
And she gets mad because they don't perform their brain.
Right. So that's a really good question. There is a fine line between, I fully believe, hey, I've got 3 kids of my own, and 2 of them are showing age, and it is 100% a family thing, right? We have to have the support of mom and dad, grandma, grandpa, aunt, whoever the guardian is and who's the sole people responsible for that kiddo. We've got to have them bought into. And if it does come up where, hey, you know what? We're getting home from the football game at Guyman at midnight. Mom, can you run out to the barn and do chores at 8:30? Those things are acceptable. Life happens. We get that. But whenever it's mom or dad doing it all the time, every time, and the students not being super involved or as much as they need to be, that's a tricky situation. And I think that's a moment where you can sit that kiddo down in ag class and just say, hey, listen, talk to me about what's going on. Tell me what's going on with your life, and just really try to understand what's going on with them, why maybe they are so hands-off or have been as hands-off recently as what they have been. When you ask those questions, you have to be a little bit prepared for what you might get into. Hey, things are not going well at home. Mom says we're not getting rid of the animals. I'm not interested. There's been an issue between me and her, and I told her it was her deal. You might get into some of that. So whenever you start asking those questions, you got to realize, hey, listen, I may find out a little more than what I need to know or what I'm ready to know, But in that moment, if that's something that we're seeing in a pattern that we're seeing happen, just having that conversation with that kid about, hey, tell me what's going on. I've noticed, seen mom throwing feed twice a day, every day for the last week. Hadn't seen you out there much. What's happening? And they're more than likely they're going to open up to you. And then when they do, just say, hey, I'm here to help you in whatever capacity I can, because I want you to be successful. The way you have to help yourself be successful is you have to be present in that animal's life. You have to be the one dumping some feed whenever you can. In the moments where you can't, having that support's great. But you've got to be there, brushing, walking, feeding, doing everything, washing, all of those things. And it's so important. So, yeah, that's what I would suggest.
So, with that, so she had the 2 last year.
Yep.
And 1 more this year. How would you go about that one?
If she doesn't have them yet, I would sit her down now and just say, hey, listen, you had two last year. You want to add 1 this year? Let's visit about some things that I noticed last year, and let's try to maybe change the culture of the idea of how we're going to go about this from the beginning, and just say, hey, this is what I noticed. This is what I would like to see done differently. And if we can do those things, then absolutely, I think you're ready for 3. But if not, maybe we need to stay with 2, or maybe we need to rethink about getting any at all. Okay? Anybody else got any questions? Yep.
So we don't have summer things, we just have kids spring
Yep.
and spring. And I'm looking at different ways, biosecurity-wise, to kind of clean out the barn, get
Yep.
the gunk out. Do you have any recommendations of like power washing, specific things, anything along those lines?
Yeah, so cleaning out after each set of pigs is incredibly important. Just from a general health standpoint, there's a lot of different products you can use to disinfect with. Synergize, there's a couple other ones. And you're not everybody's going to have access to some of these things, but if you have access to them, I would highly recommend them. A pressure washer that can heat water, get hot pressure water on it and do from as high as you can get on the walls all the way down the floor and push that stuff out. And then put your disinfectant down. Spray it on the walls, spray it on the floor, spray it, in the cup waters, on the panels, anything and everything you can think of. Because the very most critical point of that pig's life is the day you bring it home to that student. And if that thing gets off on a bad start, it could be a bad experience not only for the pig, it could be a bad experience for the kid, it could be a bad experience for mom and dad, it could be a bad experience for us as ag teachers. And then, worst case scenario, we lose the kid. They're uninterested now. They don't want to do it anymore. Mom and dad are like, no, we're done. So biosecurity is a huge, huge thing. And we'll talk a little more about some vaccinations, medicines, protocols, that kind of stuff here in a little bit that we'll get into as well. But I would say if you have access to 1 or more pressure washers, pressure wash from the walls to the ground and the floor out to somewhere where it can run out, and then put you some disinfectant down, let it dry out. And if you have time and enough manpower and help, then pressure wash that stuff out and make sure it's not the pigs aren't going to ingest it or any of that kind of stuff too. But do the cup waters, do the panels, do the feeders. At the end of the show season, disinfect those things too. And let them hang out in the sunshine to dry, because that will kill all that bacteria. Anybody else?
Kind of piggybacking off of the mom doing everything.
Yep.
I've got a set of kids.
Yep.
Oldest one will be a junior, youngest one's an 8th grader. They will not. They use the school facilities, they will not take care of their stuff.
Yep.
I mean, will not. I've done everything I know how to do. I didn't put in a barn contract. I was told that they wouldn't be a problem. This year they just blew everything up. I mean, they left, they had 4 pigs on feed. I've got 5 dirty pens still. They haven't come clean them. They show box is still there. I gave them a month after Hawaii. What, I mean, do I take their, I don't have a contract. What do I do?
So at that point, every single one of us in this room and every ag teacher in the state that has a school farm has been there. And if they haven't yet, they will be. I can just promise you. I've been there. I've had a school farm. All 3 places I've been so far. I'm going to my 4th place. I have one there. It happens. It's happened to me at every single one of them. First and foremost, what I would suggest, the way that you get your school farm contract pushed through to the principal, superintendent, school board, take your principal out there and say, hey, I have asked this young person this many times. Make sure you have documentation, text message, whatever, and mom and dad as well. I've tried to contact them this many times. There's been 0 communication back. There's been 0 work or effort put forth, you know. Take them out there and let them see that the other kids have taken care of their stuff. These kids haven't. And the effort has been made on my part as your employee and their ag teacher to try and get that response out of them. And then you say, hey, I think by you having this contract in place, this will help prevent some of that. And I would always encourage you to make sure your principal, superintendent are on board with the contract and that it gets voted on by the school board. Because then, at the very, not saying that becomes a legal document, because it doesn't, but what it does is it doesn't just put you in a weird situation with kid and mom and dad. If you say, hey, listen, you signed the contract, your parents signed the contract, we've went through these steps of consequences, you're out of here. They can't just say, you know what, I'm mad at the ag teacher. We're going, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you go to the principal, you're going to be mad at them too because they approved of it. If you go to the SUP, they approved of it. If you go to the school board, they approved of it. In your situation, currently not having one and still having that go on, I've been there too. I think that's a situation where if those kids and those parents say, I want to get some pigs in the fall, winter, okay, you can once you come up here and take care of your business. And oh wait, by the way, here's a school farm contract that the school board has voted and approved for our school farm facilities. We're going to need you to go ahead and sign, you as a student and you as a parent, this contract before you're allowed to get any animals in here. And you need to read through it thoroughly because we are going to be following these protocols from going forward. And that's just, man, it's so hard because you guys know how busy we get and everything we've got going on. It is so hard to have that contract in place and to remember, okay, well, this is consequence number 1, consequence 2, and then to be the enforcer of those things whenever we've got 9 million other things we're juggling. And unfortunately, this sounds terrible, but you're going to have to make an example out of one before the rest are going to realize that you're serious. I mean, it's just the way it is. It's unfortunate. It's just how it is. I wish there were a better answer. I wish there was a way to keep, all the kids engaged and say, hey, listen, as soon as the show season's over with, we're cleaning all of our pens, we're disinfecting everything so that it's ready to go when the next set of pigs comes in. It's not going to be that way. So, I hope that helps.
I hope so too.
I don't know.
I wanted to go in this summer and have everything I want to disinfect everything because I've done it that way.
Yep.
Like it's the way to do it,
Yep.
to keep everything from getting sick. Well, that didn't happen last year. I had to bring them in the year before and have them reclaim their stuff because they didn't get it done. Well, now I'm in the boat where if I don't go and do it myself, it's not going to get done. I don't want to go out and clean it.
No, and it's not your responsibility to. And this is the other thing too that you could do is so that it kind of takes a little bit of it off your shoulders. Contact your principal right now this summer and say, hey, listen, this is what I'm running into. I'm having trouble here. Could you make a parent contact for me or with me or whatever, and say, hey, listen, we got to get this done. We got to get wrapped up. This is behind us. We're trying to move forward. We got to get it fixed. And in all reality, it'll take those kids an hour and a half to come in, get them scraped out, and then you can start disinfecting everything. So it's just an hour and a half, and I get it. It's a pain in the butt is what it is. Anybody else? You guys are going to have to keep me on task here. Last time I ran long, last year.
I'll give you a warning when it's not.
Okay, very good. Perfect. Anybody else got anything? Yep.
You might go over it. Can you just do like what you would do with the joke off in a normal week? Like how many
Yeah.
times across your front?
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. We'll just go right into that, kind of segue in. Talked about how important it is from the time you get them from the breeder or the pig sale or wherever it is you're getting them from, and whenever you unload them at home. I just finished my 11th year to teach. Up until 3 years ago, I had never heard another ag teacher that I communicate with on a regular basis or a breeder that I buy pigs from regularly say anything about revaccinating the pigs once you get them home. Never. But in the last 3 years, that's become a pretty hot topic amongst people that I communicate with on a regular basis about show pigs. And what I mean is Serco, Myco, PERS, all those vaccinations. Now, in order to get them, you're probably going to have a good relationship with a veterinarian first, because that's where you got to get those things, right? And so I can't stress enough the fact of find out who the vet is either in your community or in a surrounding community. Don't just call them. Go by there. Introduce yourself to the secretary, because every time you call the vet's office, you're going to talk to the secretary before you ever get to talk to the vet. Introduce yourself to the secretary. I'm so-and-so. I'm new to town. I'm new ag teacher, yada, yada, yada. Is Dr. So-and-so available? They're going to come out. They're going to visit with you. Introduce yourself, Hey, would like to invite you to come by the school farm. Would like to visit with you about some things, yada, yada, yada. Start building that relationship. Because here's the thing. You're going to need to rely on that person for those vaccinations like we just talked about. But you're also going to need to rely on them for other medicines. You're going to need to rely on them for health papers. And if any of you are like me, when it comes time to leave to go to OY or Tulsa, the very last thing that I do that gets my butt in a gym every single time is health papers. It'll be the day before or 2 days before it's time to leave, and I have not thought one thing about health papers, and somebody says the word health paper and my head starts spinning. I'm like, oh crap. I have not done that. And I know when I call the vet office that whoever that secretary is that's going to answer the phone, they've already written 1,000 of them. And now I'm late to the party, and they think, Mark, why are you waiting until the last minute? So just think about those things. That's going to happen. So when you have a relationship with those people, they're way more understanding and way less likely to fuss and get flared up, okay? But having that relationship with that person so that you can get your medication from them, because 90% of the time, if we're just going to be honest with ourselves, we usually have the medication with us. We'll go by and doctor them. Not very often does mom and dad have all that stuff on hand, right? There are a few instances where you're going to have a kid or kids who have them at home, and mom and dad, they've had kids showing for 10 years, Well, they know by then, hey, listen, these are the medications I need to have on hand because I can give a shot. I don't have to call the ag teacher for all this other jack. Okay? But getting them in, I'm not telling you to vaccinate them whenever you get them in as babies, and I'm not telling you not to. You need to communicate with the breeder that you get them from, ask them what they have been vaccinated for, and they should be able to tell you what all vaccinations that they have had up to that point. If they have had Serco, Myco, and PERS already, it is okay to revaccinate because that stuff will usually wear off in about 6 months. Okay? And usually they're going to get it when they're about 6 weeks old. And so they're not going to make it all the way to OYE or Tulsa by the time you get there. So, like OYE pigs, it's okay to kind of like revaccinate about Christmas or first of the year. And that gets you all the way through and you're good to go. Okay? When you get them home and the first week to 10 days is critical. Are they cleaning up their feed twice a day? And if they're not, okay, how are they acting? What's the first way that we can tell if a pig is either unhealthy or doesn't feel good or something's going on? Huh? You can tell by their poop, yeah. What's their stool like? If there's feed in the feeder, too. If they're running or if they're not acting like they feel good and there's feed still in the feeder, there's something wrong, right? The way I know that a pig feels good and that they're pretty healthy, if I walk in the barn and them things are standing at the gate squealing, ready to eat. And if they're doing those things, most of the time things are okay. I'm not saying every time, but most of the time. And so then, if you see a runny stool, diarrhea, okay, but they're eating, they act like they feel good, they're running around the pen. Okay, let's wait maybe 12 hours before we doctor to see if there's just something going on with the temperature change, or if maybe I overfed that feeding or something. I would say understanding what has taken place prior to health is very, very important before you treat and medicate. We got 85, 90 pounders, 100 pounders at the house right now. Well, we're kind of transitioning from about a cup and a quarter to a cup and a half twice a day, and bumping up to trying to bump and increase. Well, what happened to the one that I bumped last night? This morning when I got to the barn, his stool was a little softer. Okay, his belly got a little fuller last night than it's accustomed to. He kind of overate a little bit. He's fine. He acted like he felt just fine this morning. But I did notice his stool was a little looser. Note to self, Mark, hey, remember you increase his feed, you probably don't need to needle him yet, right? Then we get them home. First 7 or 10 days are going good. Health seems to be fine. Everything's good. What does the student need to begin doing then, and what is my role in that? Do you have any ideas or suggestions? That's right. Brush them, walk them, building those relationships. Very smart, intelligent guy once told me, he said, brush them, feed them, walk them. And if you think it's real simple to say, but if you really think about those things, you're really taking care of, you're checking the boxes that you need to be. Now, I would tell you from 10 years ago, whenever I was told that, to now, this show pig thing has evolved quickly. It's more than just brushing. It's more than just walking. And it's more than just feeding. We have to brush with a purpose. We're not just going in there, letting those kids, just brush. They need to brush them from nose to tail and top to bottom, front to back, top down. And brush with a purpose. The reason we brush them is to get all the old, dead, dry skin off of them and to train their hair to lay right. Okay? You're never going to convince me from now until the industry changes, and I don't see it changing. We're showing show animals in a show ring. They need to look like show animals. It's, you got to dress them things up. The days of going out and dumping feed once a day in the mud puddle with a lean-to or a hut, Quincy hut out there, they're gone. And being competitive. I'm not saying those kids aren't still there, because there are kids that are still wanting to do it, that's all they have. I'm not saying they don't exist, because they do. But those kids having a chance to win their county show or put one in the Cello here in Tulsa is becoming so much harder than what it used to be, right? Because we're not only brushing twice a day, we're shampooing in a wash rack, we're conditioning in a wash rack, we're putting some sort of oil or hair conditioner product on them twice a day, or once a day for sure every day. When we get them out and walk them, we're not just letting the kids follow them around with a whip. They're using that whip with a purpose to train them to walk like a show pig is supposed to walk in a show ring. And that's with their head up and driving at the right speed. Every kid and every pig are different as to what they respond to. And I would say, me personally, I can tell you this from experience, that's something where I have not been as good of a job of being involved during the training and breaking process of each one of those kids and their pigs. And it is so easy to get frustrated and get down and just honestly mad at the pig, at the kid, or from a parent perspective, get mad at the pig and the kid and be like, what are you doing? Every one of those things are different. And you got to think about, hey, listen, this is only the second time we're getting this thing out of his pen. Maybe we need to take things a little slower. Or he's been out of the barn 100 times and he's blowing up. Okay, well, he's been out of the barn 100 times. He's never blown up. That pig's never blown up once. There's something going on with that pig. Or its surroundings that it's not comfortable with. It's not that the pig just all of a sudden, hey, I'm going to be an idiot today. There's something going on with its surroundings, or there's something going on internally that we can't see or comprehend just yet. So just think about those things, Every single day being consistent is so important. I had a student ask, what time do I need to feed? How long do I need to wait between feedings? Well, that's something I've never really went over with a kid whenever I drop their pig off. I just tell them, you need to feed this and this twice a day. Well, Mr. McPeak, does that mean I can feed at noon and midnight? Or noon and 3? Or what? We as ag teachers, we need to be thinking about how we say those things and why we say them. And maybe just be a little bit more descriptive, because in my head, when I tell Johnny, hey, listen, you need to feed twice a day, I'm thinking, hey, Johnny needs to feed at 7:30 in the morning before school and probably between 5:30 and 7:30 in the evenings. Johnny probably, if he's never fed a pig before in his life, he's like, okay, I'm going to feed before school, or mom's going to come feed after she drops me off. And when mom picks me up at 3:30, we're going to come by here and we're just going to dump feed. No, it's not that simple. You need to be there to feed before school, and you need to be there 10 to 12 hours later. In the summertime, man, feeding in the summertime is tough because it is so hot. If you go and try to, if you sleep in one day, it's 9:30, you get to the barn about 9:30, 9:45, and that temperature's already creeping up there to 90 degrees in end of July, 1st of August. Those things I don't want to eat. Just like you and I, we don't want to be out there up exerting any energy. We want to be laying underneath the fan on some cool bedding somewhere, right? Feeding in the summertime is different because we probably need to feed a little earlier and feed a little later. Like, I tell kids, for sure try to feed before 9 in the summertime, because I know some kids have jobs in the summertime. Some of them don't, some of them do different things. But if you can feed before 9, usually before 9, it's still at least cool enough for those things to be hungry and be interested in eating. And I would say at least 12 hours after that. If it's 9 a.m., at least 12 hours after that, because, at 9 o'clock, it's in the peak summertime, the sun's just going down or going good. And it's probably still in the high 80s, low 90s. And the other thing we talk about in the summertime, we don't do this in the wintertime, obviously, but there is nothing in the world wrong with those kids going out there with a water hose while them things are standing there at the feeder eating in the morning and in the evening, and just rinsing them off. They should be getting rinsed off in the wash rack too, and we're going to talk about that, but that'll help bring their body temperature down, help make them be a little more interested in eating. I think your question originally was, how often do we wash during the week, right? Well, it depends on what your setup is like, right? Where you have that you can do those things. Some kids, it's a makeshift pen outside on a concrete slab or on a dirt floor, or whatever, out in the grass. Hey, I've been there. I've done it, right? Asking that kid to wash 3 or 4 times a week when it's 40 degrees outside or there's ice and snow, that's not feasible. That kid is going to become uninterested because they're going to be freezing their butts off. And that pig is more than likely going to get sick, which is going to cause turmoil between the kid and the parents and the ag teacher, right? Because then we're going to be doctoring. You have to use some common sense and all that, honestly. If in a perfect world, okay, I'm going to speak perfect world scenario here for just a minute. And I don't live in this world, and I don't know very many people that do, okay? But if you have a wash bay area that's concrete, that has a drain in it, with a barn that's climate controlled and water that's not ice freezing cold whenever you're washing in the wintertime, there's not a reason in the world those kids should not be washing those pigs 3 times a week. Not a reason in the world. If their environment is climate controlled and it's 60 degrees in there, and I'm telling you in the wintertime 60 degrees is plenty on a show pig, okay? But if they're in a climate controlled area and with a concrete floor wash rack that drains, and that water can be warm and not freezing cold, those kids every pig should go through the rack at least 3 times a week. Soap and water, conditioner. Now, for the kids that don't have a wash rack, how can we expect them to wash their pigs a week? When they can. When the sun is out. whenever it gets to 50 degrees in the wintertime. Because I'm telling you, you have them wash them when it's 35 or 40, and they're having to wash outside on the grass or dirt. It's not going to be fun for anyone involved. You, me, them, the pig, the parents, nobody. It almost becomes counterproductive at that point. Really. So, you know, I'm a product of that. Like, there's days where we can't wash at home, at my house, where I lived. We just can't. So when you can, if it's feasible, 3 times a week, 4 times a week, whatever, you know, and you're conditioning twice a day, or conditioning them with hair products once a day, because like I said, at the end of the day, it's a show pig and a show ring, and we're trying to show them off. To go back a little bit on breaking those pigs, to train them how to walk and to go through that process, don't ask a kid to go do that by themselves. Either mom or dad or us need to be present when that takes place. Because if that kid doesn't really know what's going on, and mom or dad aren't present and we're not present, these things can stress and die just like that. Real quick. And those kids, they may not know it's coming. And boom, it happens just like that. And that part of that pig's life is whenever we're introducing the most new things to them. It creates a stressful environment on them. So an adult that knows a little bit about what's going on needs to be present. Now, if you've got 100 show bears on feed at 10 different locations, it is physically impossible for you and I as the ag teacher to be there when every single one of them are being broke to show. It's impossible. And if you are spending enough time there where you can be involved in that, either A, you don't have a significant other, or B, you're fixing to lose your significant other. Okay? And I'm dead serious about that. That's why the support group at home for that kid is so important. You have to communicate those things with mom and dad, grandma and grandpa, whoever the guardian is. Hey, listen, it's time to start breaking them. And you and I, we can go by there and we can show those kids, hey, this is what you do and this is what you have to do. And it doesn't take you or I three minutes, right? On those greenhorn kids, those greenhorn parents. We can show them what to do and how to do it in 3 to 5 minutes. And then that's when we say, hey, mom, dad, you guys, if you have any questions, please call me, text me, whatever. I've got to go to the next one. Whatever. But don't ever let mom and dad think they can let that kid start doing those things without them present or me present. Because then it's an issue. And there's going to be a pig die. And that means there's going to be a kid cry. And a mom and dad either cry or be mad or something. We want to avoid those things. We've got just a few more minutes here, about 7 or 8. Is there anything that you guys want to know, want to talk about that I have not touched on? No?
Well, you've been at big schools and small schools?
I have been at 1 small school, 2 big schools, and I'm going to my 2nd small school.
How do you handle the kids that you know are going to hit the SIP bin at Tulsa? They just want to go. They want to, and they don't have that extra money.
Right.
They want.
Okay. We're
on DNA.
hey, listen, here's the deal. Every single one of us in this room and every ag teacher in this state is going to have that scenario right there. Kid doesn't have a whole lot of money to spend on a pig, doesn't have a whole lot of money to feed it, doesn't, they're not more than likely going to be successful to wire your Tulsa. So this is the process in which I think about it. Okay? Did that kid do their job every single day? Are they feeding? Are they brushing? Are they walking? If they check those boxes, and it is strictly an economical thing, a financial thing, I will do anything and everything I can to make that animal the best I can, even though if I know in the back of my mind, hey, listen, there is nothing I can do to get this thing across the gate, across the pen, up the hill. There's nothing. That kid having that psychological confidence that Mr. McPeak is doing the exact same thing for me that he's doing for this kid that's put a bear in the cell 3 out of the last 4 majors we've been to. I'm getting the same exact thing that this kid got, and they've put 3 bears in the cell at the 4 majors we've been to. That psychological thing is big for a kid, for me, in my opinion. It goes a long way with those kids and those parents. And then, I think it opens the door up a little bit too, because that's us building a relationship with those kids and their parents. And it also gives us the opportunity to have those conversations and say, hey, you know what, Johnny? Listen, I know you told me you only got $350 to buy a pig. And if that's what you want to do, I'm going to find you the best $350 pig I can find you. Let's talk to mom and dad, and let's see if there's anything else we can do. Or you might know a businessman or a breeder or somebody, and say, hey, listen, you know what? I got Johnny here. This kid, he will feed him rocks from this specific spot in the driveway if I tell him that's going to make that pig better. And he'll do it twice a day, every day at the same time. But Johnny don't have any money. And this pig is $700, and I want to get it for Johnny, and he's only got $350. There's a lot of breeders that are going to tell you, hey, listen, I can't help you. But if you and if we will do business with the people that we know and that we have a relationship with, and that truly believe that building kids is what we're doing, they're going to work with you 9 times out of 10. They might not be able to sell it to you for $350, but they might be able to sell it to you for $500. And then you got to get creative. Find little extra cash somewhere, whatever.
I'll also say, the school I taught at, all my kids were like that, and the ones that worked their tail off and could win a showmanship class, it was tears. We just won the Whitey because they wouldn't.
Hey, I'm telling you, I'm the product of that system too. I mean, I didn't have a ton of money as a kid growing up, and and honestly, looking back, whatever, that's a different conversation for a different time. But that is one of the things where, I felt like I could excel at. It was in showmanship, and showmanship it's a double-edged sword. Some people love it, some people hate it. But you have to have showmanship in order to get along in a show. You really do. And so those kids that don't, have as much money, maybe they can be competitive in a showmanship. So, anything else? I think is it about time?
Yeah, about 3 minutes.
3 minutes, okay. Anything else anybody wants to ask? Yep.
What do you do for Hawaii? How many ghost pigs do you fit?
How many ghost pigs?
And how do you get your parents on board with that?
That's a great question. Because if you go to a school that has been doing extra nominations for pen space for pigs, and you go in and you don't do it and you have them stalled, 3 per stall, you will not be reemployed the next year, because there will be enough mamas and daddies up there calling the principal, calling the superintendent, calling the school board, telling them, you did not do your job. And you had done your job up to that point, and you got them nominated, and you got them entered. So you did your job. You just didn't realize that they wanted those things. That's conversation, just like for Tulsa right now. Tulsa nominations are July 1. You have those conversations with those parents of those kids before you order the nominations. And you tell them, if you want 1 pig per pen, and they're all horse stalls now, so they're 5 by 10s. If you want 1 pig per 5 by 10 pen, these are how many extra nominations you need to order in order to secure that. And these nominations are $10 a piece if I go pick them up at the office, and they're $15 if we have them mailed. Okay? And just be open and transparent with them. And tell them, listen, if you don't want to pay the extra money, I completely understand. We're going to have to plan before we ever leave town, a couple months out, to make sure we got enough panels and dividers to divide those pins with. And you as mom and dad, because you don't want to shell out the money, which is okay, well, I'm going to need you to go and help support me and your student and these other students to help divide these stalls. Because I can promise you, if you've got 15, 20 show bearers going to OYE or Tulsa, and you and I try to go and divide all those pins by ourselves, you'd be there for a day. It sucks. The magical question is how many? That was what triggered me whenever you said that. How many extras? I don't know what their magic number is. From what Rose's email says, it's 3.75 or whatever it is for OYE is what it was, and it went to 4.25 in the half stalls this last year. So if one kid's planning on taking 1 show barrow and they want that thing to have 1 pin, you need to get that 1 nomination plus 3 more for half a stall. So $80 for a half a stall is what I tell them. And just be open with them and say, if you don't want to pay that, that's fine. If you do, that's great too.
You also pay the nomination before you can pay that interest.
That's right. And that's the other thing you got to tell them is you got to pay that for the nominations, and you got to pay that again in 2 months for the entries.
It's now 160.
That's right. It's $160 per pin. Per pig. Per half. That's right.
Per in.
Yeah. So, but that, talking about money, that's the thing. It's just better to be open and upfront with them. And I've heard of schools that they pay for all the extras, and I've heard of schools that don't pay for a single extra. That's up to your local school, your administrators and your school board, what they want to do. If they want to, I think it's awesome if they have the financial means to do it. But at the same time, it should fall back a little bit on those parents too. So, okay? Perfect.
All right.
Thank you guys for participating.
I do have a couple of announcements.
Can I turn this off?
Yeah.
Okay.